Rishita join.
Yeah, sure.
Hi Manoranjan.
Yeah,
Hi
hi.
Archana.
So we can start then.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I was asking in our last class where we have gone through support section,
Yeah.
right? So any questions you have, and did you go through the video and the content?
Yes. Also, from like what we had a confusion here is regarding the version supports.
Hmm.
Like we have under semantic, we have like major version, minor version, and then community edition patch and enterprise patch version. So
Hmm.
here, while we are checking the example, right, the value is again going to be the same.
Which value?
Let me share my screen and I'll show you.
Okay.
You able to see my screen?
Hmm. Yes.
So here we have given here, like as per the sheet we have added, community edition patch 2.8.3 means release version is 2.8, patch number is 3.
Hmm.
And for enterprise patch version, the enterprise release version is again 2.8 and the patch version is 3.0,
Hmm.
3.2. So here it's the values are same, right? Like,
You're saying 3 and 3.0
huh,
is
see,
same.
community edition patch is 2.8, and
Hmm.
here enterprise patch version is again 2.8.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's the first numbers, right? So how can we differ? What is the difference? But here it's
No,
there.
that uh, so for the enterprise patch version, which digit it is referring to? It says the right of the rightmost uh, decimal point. So that is the fourth digit. Okay, and the community edition is saying left of the rightmost decimal point. That is the third digit. So that's why it is depending on the patch number, third digit for community edition, and for enterprise edition it will depend on the fourth digit.
Mm, fourth digit means here
That
it is
zero,
0,
zero is
right?
there, no? So
But here
when
it is
so
3.
that version will keep changing, 0 1 2 3 4 like that.
Okay. So you mean for the community edition patch, we will be having only your release version and patch
No, no,
number.
the full version will be there, but the digit, third digit will
Fourth.
change.
Okay.
Third digit will change.
And here the fourth digit will change.
Right. So if you look at the position of the digits, like major
Hmm.
version, first digit will change. So that's why it is referring to 2. Then minor version is 1. So that is the second digit. So for minor version, second digit will be changed. For
Okay.
community edition, third version, third digit. And for enterprise, it will be fourth digit. If you see the signature in the top, right, product
Hmm.
follow a pattern of major dot minor dot patch dot enterprise patch. Go up.
Okay. Major, minor, patch,
And
enterprise.
enterprise patch.
This
So
patch means
the
it's a
patch is the third digit,
community edition patch.
right? So it is not exactly third digit, but between the last dot and the previous dot.
Hmm.
It may be multiple digits also. So when it crosses 9, it will become 10, 11, 12 also.
Okay. Fine.
That's all.
Yeah, that's all the doubt. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So let me share my screen.
Hmm.
Okay, are you able to see?
Not yet. Yeah, able to see.
All right. So you have covered the support section. We'll see today about stability, then little bit on the release note, and we'll see how many. After that, you have breaking changes and key concepts. So we'll see how many you can cover on the key concepts. Okay. So let's follow this one by one. So stability. So in other trainings and all, they won't basically talk about these terms, but these are very very important for any engineer. That's why I'm going through all this in detail. Okay, and this will definitely help you whenever you make some decision or you come across any critical issues in your system. Okay. So if you see here, here it talks about stability, but in the heading it says stages of software availability. These two terms are different.
Yeah.
Stability versus availability. So what is the relation? Stability and availability. Any idea you want to say?
If it is available only, we can tell like that environment or appliance is stable. Is it something like that? I mean,
Uh, it is more on the opposite direction. So when a product is stable from a company perspective, then only they make it available. So
okay.
you were almost
Ah,
near,
yeah, yeah, understood.
right? So the initially company releases with beta version, let's say, okay.
Mhm.
A beta feature or version should not be dependent upon a production environment. So any release which you see, which is called as a beta version, don't use it for your production.
Yeah.
Okay, it is released or it is published so that people can try within the development version and they can test it that whether it is a stable or not. Okay, now once it goes through many testing cycles publicly as well as from company side they do it and they feel it is stable, then they release it, and that is where the release versions will come in as we have seen in the previous section. Yeah. Then you have a general availability. So this GA is important when you walk through, let's say, some tech talk and all. They will talk about this GA, right? So it will be easy to understand if you know what it is. General availability means that the software is released publicly and is supported according to that company's support and maintenance policy. Okay. So this is why it is important, and you should choose wisely, not necessarily the last version, but let's say there are previous few versions, as you can see in the release notes. Let's say there are multiple versions available. 3.5 is the latest version. 0.0 is the major version, and if you see the previous version was 3.4.2, right?
Yeah.
So though it is very big changes, but they call it as minor version. So if you see the changes in this second section,
Yeah. Right.
okay, and if you look at this, there are a lot of changes in terms of new features as well as bug fixes. Now, when we talk about the stability in the previous sections, right? This is recently come, so that does not mean that this only will be the best one. Because many times you might have seen Windows have come up with many versions of their operating system, but few versions are very popular and they stayed for a long time. For
Correct.
example, let's say Windows 95 went
Yeah.
for a long time. Windows 11, ran for a long time. But there are in between many versions came, but you don't see those names.
Yeah. True.
After that, also many versions came, but those are not that popular and not recommended. So out of these versions, let's say you are going to take a decision for a very big project, okay, as a DevOps lead, then you need to walk through all this before you take a decision. But when you go through this training, you just learn all core things and have it with you. And when it comes for the project decision making, you should definitely read it once about the differences on different versions and the release notes. Okay, and you should explore over the net also regarding the different comments and feedbacks on those particular versions, and which is more stronger, stable, so that you can recommend that particular version for your company. Make sense?
Yeah.
Now, what are the different types of changes they do? If you see here, some breaking changes on session you have, I want to mention. Then the features. Now, under features, you have all this. Now, if you walk through, you know also the product better, that on which portions of those products some work is going on still. In the enterprise sections, you have Kong Manager, then changes in the core features. Then there's open source also, and all these plugins like mocking, OS validation, OpenID Connect, okay, Open Telemetry, course. And then if you see on the fixes, there are so many fixes on enterprise, admin API. So none of the product is you know perfect, right?
Okay.
Every product will have a lot of issues, but
Defects.
whatever the product has, that is good enough for doing our work. But all these issues, when it is there, how do we deal with, right? So today this is fixed, but people who are using the previous versions, how they will deal it, so they have to find out some alternative for those.
Yeah.
Same dev portal. In the dev portal, you have the Kong Manager. So for all those sections, for the dev portal also you have changes. Now, this why you need to know is, you need to know the limitations. See, what happens is, let's say you have one issue in your product or in your application. Okay. Now, as a lead, that is now your responsibility to either you fix by coding yourself, or you ask your team to fix it. Let's say your team could not fix it, so now you have to fix it, or else your manager or your lead will not accept that. Okay, until you
Okay.
give a very proper reason. Now, if that issue is coming because of the product problem itself, and you don't know at all, and you are keep on researching, and you are saying that no, I will fix it, give me 1 day, give me 1 week, give me 3 weeks, time will keep on passing.
Correct.
Okay, and
Yeah.
you not have any valid reasons. That is what happens when you are initial stage of your career and you are learning a new product. Basically, you are shy to ask any question. Okay, if the
Yeah.
problem is somewhere else, it is not your problem at all, but you keep trying and you spend your time, and at the end you are not also able to solve, and you don't have a courage to ask also others, by thinking that if I ask them, you will be like they will think that you don't know anything. It happens to you,
Yes.
correct? So
Yeah.
that is the reason you need to go through these things. You need to learn it, so that you will be confident enough to ask the right question and also tell the right thing, that this is the limitation, it cannot be done because of such reasons. So what is the alternative? Then you have to work together. What are the alternatives? Either if managers, if they are technical enough, they will guide you. If no, then you can talk to the techies across the world in the different forums and all, and then you take advice from them.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So let's move to the next one. For stability, then release notes also we covered, and
The change log.
breaking changes. So the same things for release notes, whatever you're seeing, for every release, what are the breaking changes are there that you should walk through. You don't have to memorize and remember everything, but you should just have a know-how that these things goes on.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, so breaking changes, and now let's see what are the concepts, key
Yeah.
concepts which someone needs to know. Okay, so
Yeah.
these concepts are, I would say, common, but terminology would be little different on different API gateway products.
Okay.
So you can always at least 3 to 4 API gateway you should always compare, like AWS API gateway, APG, and Azure API gateway, and maybe you can take up with IBM's API manager. Okay. This is a very popular one. You should compare that. I call it as service. What the same thing is called in the other product. Okay, so let's see what is service. Now, okay, so let's have a conversation, right? So that it won't be boring. So you tell what you understand by a service. Archana, you
Now,
tell first.
Yeah, it's a backend provider details,
Hmm.
and yeah, like it will have the provider details. Like we can add multiple services who are going to, like if Kong is connecting to, and we can add the certificates, this their connection,
those
connectivity
import all those details.
Hmm.
and those things. It's basically
What
the
else?
providers.
What else? Rishita?
Yeah, same thing from my end also, Manoranjan. Normally, we used to update the host name of the backend along with their port,
Hmm.
and yeah, those two details only we used to update in the services, and we used to keep some common names so that different APIs can be used for the same service,
Hmm.
like that.
So once again, like like once the APIs we created under the routes, we will tag the service in the
Tag the service to the,
APIs,
yeah,
so
particular
that if we go to the services, then it will have the list of APIs that is
Hmm.
that is
associated with that. Yeah.
right.
And what is that service? What does that service do?
Service will help
Normally,
connect
it
the
will
backend.
provide, yeah, the information what we are asking for from the Kong and to the backend. If it is
Yeah,
like,
what is the information?
yeah,
Sure.
if it is like some get information, it will provide the information from the from the service end to the Kong, like that.
Hmm.
I mean,
Okay.
that is what is our
So let
understanding.
me.
For
Yeah,
accuracy.
you are correct nearer, but I know some more information is required regarding this. So
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
say you are doing a bank transaction. Okay, you are debiting something.
Hmm.
You are transferring a money. Okay, you selected your account, and the account where you want to transfer the money. You entered the amount and say submit. Okay. Now when it says submit, it calls an API, right? So first it
Yeah.
hits the API gateway, and then it goes to backend service. So that backend service basically will do all the operations or the calculations. And what are those operations? Like getting verifying your details, whether you can do the transaction or not, whether you have permission or not. Then it will check the balance in your account.
Balance. Yeah.
It will debit it. So all the calculations, whatever happens, right, transfers it to the destination, right, and sends the or feedback or notifications, everything. Right? So the service, and what is that service? It is nowadays we call it more of a microservice for any service. Previously, we used to have a SOAP service. Before that, we used to connect with Corba and all kind of other technologies, right? So basically, a backend service which is doing all the operations, mostly with the databases.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how the era is changed is previously we used to have everything within the same system. Like, we did not have a concept of client and server. Everything was a single instance. Then we had a client and server. Well, from client we used to call it a server, but there was a different ways of connectivity. Okay, but what you have to focus is now whenever we are making connections with the server, we are doing nowadays with APIs. And in the latest or the recent development, what we do is we keep the client like React.js application or AngularJS application or any other JavaScript framework based application. Client is separate, where you have JavaScript, you have HTML, CSS and all. Okay, and then you will have a endpoint to call it. Okay, so that endpoint from your UI, when you call it, goes to your API. It calls the API gateway, and then from API gateway, it is going to the service.
Yes.
Okay. Now you have a one service. Now to scale it, you may have many services. Different services. Also, you may have same service with different instances. Okay. So let's say same service is running in 100 machines. Okay. Now, how do you know which the call should go to which machine? Okay, so it will have a specific path, not for the machine wise. For machine wise, it determines there are underlying layer which it determines. So that we will go later on. But in the initial stage, you just need to know that when you making a call, you need to have a unique path to make the call to that service, right? So that is where the route will come. So like how it is routing or how it is giving you the path to reach out to that service endpoint. Okay, so if you need to these 4 sections, this concept, you go line by line. Don't miss anything. Like previous section, I said you go high level, but these 4 things, right? You need to learn each and every line very thoroughly. Okay,
Yeah.
let me try to help out as much as possible here, right? In Kong Gateway, service is an entity representing an external upstream, okay, API or microservice. So nowadays they are also starting to call it as API microservice.
Yeah.
For example, data transformation microservice, a billing API, and so on. So I gave you one example similar to that. They have given some example here. The main attribute of a service is its URL. So that
Correct.
URL path.
Yeah.
There is one more term called URI. Okay.
Yeah.
Uniform Resource Indicator.
Identifier.
So see the difference. What is URL and URI?
Yeah.
You need to come back in the next class and tell me what is the difference.
Uh, that is like I'll tell. I don't know. Just to correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So if it is like with the host name, port number, and along with we will be having 2 to 3 sections like A/B/C, right? That entire thing will be calling as URL, and whatever we are calling like A/B/C, that is called Uniform Resource Identification or something. Yeah,
Right.
that is the URI.
Correct. So you will have a basically the host name and you will have a relative path.
Correct.
And you can specify the URL with the single string or by specifying it protocol, host, port, and path individually. Then you have service and route interaction. Okay, services in conjunction with routes let you expose your services to client and Kong gateway. So route is helping you to expose the service basically, because you cannot directly connect to the service. You can do it through the routes.
Okay. Yeah.
Kong gateway abstracts the service from the clients by using the route. Yes, that's the same thing. Since the client always calls the route, changes to the services like versioning don't impact how clients make the call. So underlying microservice will go on changes constantly. Okay, but for you it is the same URL you will be calling, and you might see the difference in your result.
Correct.
If there was an issue, it was fixed, you will get the correct result. If something was enhanced and it is including some more calculation, you might see a different result. But you don't have to make a different URL call. It is the same
Correct.
URL call for you always.
Yeah. The
You
same
don't have to
routes.
change the
You.
code.
Yeah. Understood.
So routes also allow the same service to be used by multiple clients and apply different policies based on the route used.
Yeah.
Okay. So there will be many different types of policies that you might need to know. How as much you know, that much faster you will be able to solve the problems, and give the better design when you are developing something new. If you have an external client and internal client that need to access the here they have said HW service, okay, but the external client should be limited in how often it can query the service to assure no denial of service. Okay, so they are giving one example, like where those policies and rules might be required. Okay, so let's say you have one service, and that service need to be called by external service and internal client also. Internal means, let's say inside the bank you are doing a you can do the transaction from outside as a customer from internet. Okay, so I'll call it as a external call or external client. Now same transaction previously you might have noticed in few years back also, like when you do a transfer, right, you have to fill up a form and give it to the bank, and they will do it on behalf of you,
You. Yeah.
right? But now that
Yeah.
service is exposed for the customer also, so that you can do yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So
Correct.
internally, when the bank manager or bank associate is doing it, right, they have a different permission to do it. So those days external customers did not have it, but now you have it. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Now there could be similar situations where certain operations which only bank employees can do it, not others. So when the URL is set, you don't have to code separately, but this is for bank employees and this is for customers. So those policies for those specific URLs, the operation is same, let's say bank transfer, but it can be done only it can be driven and controlled by the URL policies itself. So there will be roles, there will be permissions that will be attached to those URL patterns, and that can be applied. For example, let's say for customers, you can do the transfer of 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs rupees. But if you want to do the transfer of 1 crore, then maybe it can be done only through bank employees, bank managers.
Oh.
But URL is same, action is same, only differs based on the amount. So in your policy, it will be written that if it is equal or more than 1 crore, then you cannot do the transfer. So external calls will not allow you to happen that operation. Is it clear?
Yeah. Good.
In this example, two routes can be created, say external and internal. So here they have created two routes. Both routes can point to the same service. A policy can be configured to limit how often this external route is used, and route can be communicated to the external client for use. When the external client tries to access the service via Kong gateway using external, the they are rate
Right.
limited. But when the internal client accesses the service via Kong gateway internal, the client will not be limited. So what it means, see, uh, here the example which I gave, that was different, and this example is telling about the rate limiting. Okay, and they're saying they will create two routes. One is for external and one is for internal. Okay, now if it is internal and it can be done, let's say, only through bank employees, so they don't have a limit that how many times they can make the call to this API. I'll give you one example. Let's say there is a 4 lakhs employees in a company, and in a same day they have to credit the salary.
Okay.
Okay, so that is a type of bank transfer. They will have a
Yeah.
corporate account, and from the corporate account money will go to 4 lakhs employees at the same time. Okay, so
Correct.
now the person who is going to click the button to do this transfer, all the calculations happen, all the forms filled up, and data will be entered in a certain data format, whether it is Excel or database somewhere. Everybody's salary is calculated and is written now. Now, when you say hit the button transfer, it will read those 4 lakhs employees data, okay, their account details, and at the same time it will trigger the transfer. So there is no limit from the internal, it will call. But when you as a customer want to do, it will allow you only one at a time. Even if you have, let's say, multiple bank accounts, you logged it to one account, and from that account you cannot transfer to multiple accounts together. So let's say from ICICI Bank you want to transfer to 1 lakh to SBI, 1 lakh to HDFC, and 1 to Standard Chartered. So from one bank you want to transfer to 3 other banks, but you are allowed to do one at a time through the external link. So services is clear. Are you guys with me? Yeah, I think there was network issue from my side.
Huh.
Yeah. So till what point did you hear me?
Can you show that screen so that I can tell?
Yeah.
Regarding that example that you were
Ah,
talking about.
that's what the second example you were telling. Salary credited to the 4 lakhs employees. At the same time, they will be checking all the employee details, and salary will be credited to all the customers' account at the same time. Like that, you have to. I mean, that is what I have heard last.
Right. Right. Okay. So so that is the policy will allow for the internal employees to do the transfer. Okay, with the internal link. But when you as a customer want to do the transfer to, let's say, multiple accounts, you have, let's say, account in the 4 banks, and from ICICI let's want to transfer it to HDFC and SBI and Standard Chartered. Okay, but
Yeah,
you are not allowed to do those transfer together. You
together.
can do
Correct.
one at a time.
Yeah.
Okay, even if, let's say, you hack the URL by view sourcing or any other mechanisms and all, or API and all, and you try to do it, you won't be able to do it.
Correct.
So that
Yeah.
is the difference. So that is how these routes will help you to provide those kind of securities. It can be done in a coding level also, but that will be very typical and it will be more time consuming, and when you want to make some changes, your complete product will be impacted. So these layers are separated out and loosely coupled via the API gateway.
Okay.
So this is one of the decision making point when you have a architectural discussion. So you are representing the DevOps side, and there will be architect, technical architect, solution architect, right, in the team. So when you understand the business functionalities better, and people, tech leads will recommend that which kind of security layer should be applied where, right? That you can get better when you have the product knowledge as well as your application knowledge. And this when I say product, this is, let's say, API gateway product I'm talking about, right? So the product which you are going to use. So if you know all features, then easily you will tell that this kind of features can be managed well in the API gateway policy, and that you can recommend only when you have a thorough understanding of those policies. Clear?
Yes. Can you share the screen if you are telling through
Oh,
that?
I did. Okay, after
Yes.
that you are not able to see. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm in the same page, in the services page.
Okay.
Yeah. Here then you have the service configuration. So when you when you are configuring access to your API, you start by specifying a service. Okay, you can configure a service in Kong gateway using the following methods. So you have HTTP request using admin API. You can configure, and also you can create a service using Kong manager user interface. So basically, you can write the scripts, you can call the APIs, and also you can just directly log into the UI and you can manually create the things,
Yeah.
configuration.
Actually, we have done that. The second one only. First one we are
Second one you
not
have
aware.
done.
Yeah.
So send an HTTP request call using the admin API. So normally this is also not done much,
Okay.
but for the big project they do it through scripting, CLI, client side
CLI.
scripting.
Okay.
Okay, we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
So then let's see what is about routes in detail.
Yeah.
So Archana, you had a question that you can whether you can import and export a single route, something like that, na?
No. It's not that. See, what I was asking is, we have already configurations in our Kong gateway. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like we have routes, like we have multiple number of routes are there. So what I want is, I want all that configurations in an Excel sheet. So is there any way that we can um, document those APIs in an Excel sheet? Is there any, download? Can we do a download?
Yeah.
So we'll see in Kong what are the options are there. So normally you will have a export options. Okay. Now in the
Ex-
export, all different formats are available, like XML format, your JSON format, like that. And then you can save it as a XML or JSON file or any other format they allow, and then individually you can change them in the that file itself and then
no,
import it back.
no, but we don't see any import or export
Uh,
Maybe you do
option.
not, if you do not have a right permission, then it will
Correct.
not be available for you.
Archana, actually, from our team, this production guys has that access. Sometime before this, Rajesh Puchakala and team had sent me this JSON format I mean, the production code in the JSON format, so that we will be able to know which is the correct certificate. I mean,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I know that, but I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, if you have permission, then it is easy. Whenever you visit to the dashboard and page, and then we can see. But I don't want to ask you to share right away because we are recording it. We'll see offline, right? We'll go through, and if you do not have permission, we will see in the personal account if we can have those kind of features. Normally, we'll have it in the your personal account.
I mean, Manoranjan, no, I mean, other than this JSON format and all, I'm just asking, like, I mean, is there any way we can, because there will be like, we will be having thousands of routes and all, right? It is
Hmm.
not easy to go manually and check the details. So, is there any way we can export it in an Excel sheet and give the output what we require from the
Excel
data?
sheet, I think may not be because they need it in a coding format, and JSON, XML are something which are readable by the code and they are compatible. So whether Kong supports it or not, we have to check. And when
Oh,
you say few thousands or even let it be lakhs also
uh,
configuration,
correct. Yeah.
it is easy actually because there are tools for formatting and reading the JSON and XML. So when you put in that tool, no, then it will be easy to traverse and navigate through each and every attribute and features of that file. And you will be able to search also. Anything you type, immediately it will show you only that particular sections and attributes. So those tools probably you have to use. So we'll see. I mean, when you go through, show me the use case, and I will help you out how you can, which tool you should use to, so that you can easily navigate and do your work easily.
Okay,
Hmm?
sure, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You continue.
So let's see route in detail. So routes determine how and if requests are sent to their services after they reach Kong gateway, right? So route will decide how it will go to the services from gateway. Where a service represents the backend API, we know about that. A route defines what is exposed to the client. So you have a service, and now route is defining what can be exposed out of those service to the client. It can be internal client or it can be external client.
Yeah.
A single service can have many routes. Okay, once a route is matched, Kong gateway proxies the request to its associated service. When request will come, your API gateway will check the proxy, it will match it, and then it will send that request to the associated service. So how this route and service interaction happens, we'll see now. So I think this example they have given same, what we already discussed.
Okay.
Hmm.
External application. Yeah, external, internal.
So here, Manoranjan, like what we have seen here is for one route, we will have only one service.
No, one service with multiple routes.
Huh.
Yeah.
One service with multiple routes.
Right.
But for example, let's say if there is any scenario where usually in data power and all, like we used to get a scenario where they will be calling one API and then we might have to call multiple backends.
Hmm.
Okay, so in that, so but why? But in this Kong, like if for one particular route there will be only one service tag. So what if we want to do any parallel processing, or like if there are multiple backends needs to be called
Hmm.
and do a consolidated response from
Hmm.
all those backends.
Okay.
So
Okay.
is there a, like, will be getting an architecture like this
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
or
Definitely. A very good question and very good thought. I'll tell you in detail. Okay. So the concept of parallelism is implemented in so many different layers. Okay. The first layer starts from your client itself. Let's say you are writing a React.js code. Okay. In the code itself, you can basically do your parallelism by making multiple calls parallelly. So when we talk about the let's say bank transfer, let's say if I gave you example of 4 lakhs employee transfer. Okay, now that 4 lakh employees call in your client side itself, you can make 4 lakh calls and make them parallel. Let them run independently as an independent call, individual call, and then get the response back and send it. Well, that is one way. Second is you send all the requests to the server, okay, and then let server handle. So in the server, when it goes in the server, we write multi-threading programming, okay, parallel programming, and then there it handles all the calls. Okay, now you are talking that we have a one service is mapped with one route. So one route is always mapping the one service, but the parallelism of implementation or the execution again will happen on all different servers. So I said you have one service, but that service is running in 1000 servers, let's say, right?
Okay.
Now when you are making a call to a same route 4 lakh times, so 4 lakh calls came to the same route. Now the same route will call to like service, but you have only 1000 service. So what it will
Yeah.
do is that 4 lakh calls will be distributed to 1000 servers. So that is where the load balancer will come to picture. Okay, load balancer will see which service is available, backend services, and it will divert the calls to them. Then again, there will be many different other concepts also. Sticky session call, non-sticky session call, blah, blah. Right? So these all decisions where you need to make those parallelism or parallel calls is a architectural decision.
So, but here what you have said is we will be getting multiple calls from the front end itself. We in the sense Kong
That is
DP.
one way to do.
Yeah, but is it possible that just one call from the consumer, from the client, and Kong will do
But
parallel calls?
No, Kong does not do any calls. Parallel call, like Kong does not have that control.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, but there is one more concept called canary release kind of thing, where what we do is a percentage of the calls can be diverted into two different routes. So for example, you have a old route, new route. It may not be old route also, but let's say you have two routes. Okay, now when for is to understand easily, let's say you have a old route, you have a new route. Okay, now the new route, I'm not confident it will work or not. So I don't want all the customers to call the new route. So what I will do is I will set a configuration in my API gateway that pass on 5% of the calls to the new route and all 95% to the old route. So I will set that configuration, and accordingly it will load balance, and whatever calls come, 5% it will send to the new route, new service. And I will see it for a few days. Once it looks good, I'll increase that percentage from 5 to 10 or 50, whatever I want, as much is our confidence level. So in that way also, in the gateway layer, we can do that distribution of the call. But
And
normally the the functional logics we don't write there. Mainly because of deployment reasons, we do that distribution of calls. Yes.
So, just one conclusion I'm just telling. So, from the Kong, we will be able to do single service call only. There is no option like we can
No, there
do.
are options.
No, we cannot call multiple services at the same time from a single API. I mean, from a single route.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So one route is always mapped to one service only. That is why uniquely they identify.
Okay. Okay.
it is the responsibility of the client that they have to send multiple transactions. They have to send multiple transactions, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that that's the
No, no,
way,
I
right?
didn't get. Come again with the
It's the
question.
responsibility of the client to send multiple calls
Hmm.
to the Kong.
To the Kong, yes. It is the client side who needs to send that call as
Yeah,
many
so
times
in
they want
Kong
to.
there is no option to send a multiple calls to to the same service
No, no.
from
Whatever
one
call
device.
you ask to Kong to do, that Kong will send. But before sending, it will filter your calls. So whether you are right person, whether you are eligible, how many times you are calling. So those things it will verify all the
Yeah.
policies.
Okay. And whether can we do any, see here service in the sense there will be only one IP port, right? Like it is only one service endpoint. So so here there is no concept of load balancing as well.
Where in the API gateway?
Yeah, in the gateway.
The API gateway also will do kind of a load balancing. Okay, like when you have, for example, the rate limiting. Okay, it knows how much load is coming, and it can limit. But when you talk about the load balancing happening to the different servers,
Hmm.
that it will not control.
Yeah, that's right. To the backend, there is no control for the load balance.
Backend it will not. So when you have, let's say, 1000 servers, and which call goes to which server, that it will not control. So that is like, between that server there will be one load balancer. So in that case,
Yeah. Hmm.
API gateway sends the request to the load balancer,
Yeah.
and
And
then
from
load
there,
balancer will distribute the call among multiple servers.
all right. And also one more concept is that we'll see in before calling the actual service, can we add any plugins to call any other service internally, like in between the flow
Yes,
before
it
calling the
is. It
service?
is done in almost all calls. It is done. Even for example, I will give you the simple and the must one, that is your authentication filter. So authentication filter happens in your coding level when you make the service call into the server. So after load balancer, when the call goes to a specific service in a server, right? Then
Mm-hmm.
that initial call, first thing it does is the authentication check and authorization check if required. So in
Okay.
that place, after so how authentication is happening, and authentication server is different altogether, and that is a different service altogether. That
Mm-hmm.
might call a different URL also. Similar to that, you may need to do some initial data loading, or you can do some some triggering of messages that your call happened successfully. Then, for example, all your logging agents are happening, so there would be calls attached to that. So it is
Okay.
possible, and
Okay.
we do normally.
Got it. Got it.
Okay. What else? So this section, route and service interaction, this example is same which we discussed in the services section. So let's see this one, how requests are routed. Okay. This also mostly same which we already discussed, but let's see if something new. For each incoming request, Kong gateway must determine which service gets to handle it based on the routes that are defined. So it takes the endpoint URL, then it will map that it is mapped to the which service, and then it will send that request to that particular service. So here we are not talking about the load balancer. We're just saying that it will go to the service. In fact, there will be a load balancer within the service layers where the service is running in different machines. The release 3.0 Kong gateway introduced a new router. Okay, that can be running in two modes. Okay, so it says the router can run in two modes. What are those? One is transactional mode, transactional compact mode, which is configured like prior releases, and expressions mode, which uses a new configuration scheme. So you need to know these two different ways of these two modes. Okay. The default mode of the router is transactional compact. The following sessions describe how it operates. Transactional compact mode is designed to behave like the router in version before Kong Gateway 3.x. So it 3.0 onwards we have a different. Okay, for description of expressions mode series. Okay. Now in general, the router orders all defined routes by the priority and uses the highest priority matching route to handle a request. So when you are getting the request, okay, it will check the priority, which priority is set. Based on that, it will make the call. If there are multiple matching routes, okay, with the same priority, it is not defined which of the matching routes will be used by Kong Gateway, and Kong Gateway will use either of them according to how its internal data structures are organized. So if there are multiple calls happening, okay, and it's the route path, then if priority is not set, then it is up to like randomly it will decide based on the its internal logic of that product. When I say of the product means a Kong Gateway. Kong Gateway itself is a software, right? It itself has which is reading all those requests and then making the call. Then if a route contains prefix or regular expression paths, the priority of the route will be calculated separately for each of the paths and requests will be routed accordingly. Okay. So now question might be why these priorities or which call is happening, order of the calls is important. Okay. So in the normal behavior of the application, in the small cases, you don't need basically to know also. But you will see for a big application and very highly transactional applications, right? There would be some critical issues. Certain calls will not happen at all. It never gets a priority to do. So what happens? Your system will break actually. Several functions will not work because the call volume is so high, the certain things never getting prioritized. And since it is due to internal logics, you don't have any control to it. So if you know all these concepts here, then you should be able to debug where something is going on wrong. And if you want that certain calls should happen, then you can set the priority. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then in traditional compact mode, the priority of a route is determined as follow. Give me a second. So what are those options we have? We have priority points, wildcard hosts, header count, and the regular expressions and prefix paths. Okay. So these all 4 points we have to go through. Okay. Let's understand this. First one is the priority points. Okay. For the presence of each of the routes, methods, host, headers, and SNIS, a priority point will be added to the route. Okay. For each of these parameters, one priority point will be there. Okay. The number of priority points determines the overall order in which the routes will be considered. Routes with a higher priority point values will be considered before those with lower values. So my number is bigger means it has a higher priority.
Yes, priority.
This means that if one route has method defined and the second has methods and headers defined, the second one will be considered before the first one. Okay, so you have these 4 points. Okay, now if in the sum call it has definition of priority only for methods. Okay, in another one you have definition for both method and host. So the priority will be, you can think that the addition of those two priorities is higher here. Okay, let's say here it is 5, here also 5. Okay, 5, 5, 10. And that is one way to think. Another is like, you have priority set for 2 parameters. So this will get a higher priority. If someone has set for all these 4, then that will get the highest priority.
Okay.
Okay, and when you do it, you set the method when you make the API calls. In the API call, you mention the method, host, header, and all, right? So
Yeah.
that's the where it will take the priority from. Then wildcard host. Among the routes with the same priority point, let's say if there are 2 routes which have same priority. Now which one it will choose? Those that have any wildcard host specification will be considered after routes that don't have the wildcard host. That means no host is specified. If host is specified, it will take the priority. If host is not specified, that will take a lower priority.
So here it is telling about a route which is having 2 routes which is having same API name.
Same API name, same route.
Same.
Hmm.
Okay.
So when you say wildcard host, it will have that star or domain name, those kind of thing. Okay. Header count. The resulting groups are sorted so the routes with a higher number of specified headers have higher priority than those with a lower priority headers. So header count, you'll see how many headers are set. Okay, it will say count it. If it is more, then it will take. So that has a highest priority. One was with a number of parameters. Now within a single parameter headers, it is saying who has more number of header set. Okay, so that will get the more priority. Then regular expressions and prefix path. Within the resulting groups of routes with equal priority, the router sorts the routes as following. So let's see how the regular expression works. Okay, routes that have a regular expression path are considered first and are ordered by the regex priority. So when you are writing a regular expression, there will be something called regex priority. Okay, so it will take the value of that regex priority, and based on that, it will set the overall priority. Routes with a higher regex priority are considered before the routes with the regex priority value, lower value. Then you have routes that have no regular expression path are ordered by the length of their path. Okay, if expression is not mentioned, okay, if your path is not a part of the expression, then it will take the total length of the path. Routes with a longer path are considered before routes with the shorter path. It's a route if it is longer, right, it considers that as the higher priority compared to the lower or the less number of characters. So for a route with multiple paths, okay, each path will be considered separately for priority determination. Effectively, this means that a separate route exists for each of the path. So that is same. If you have multiple, then it will consider each one separately. It will determine the priority, and then accordingly it will make the call. Now it talks about regular expression little more. So we'll see. The regular expression used in routes, okay, use more resources to evaluate than simple prefix routes. Okay, so when we use regular expression, when you have more resources. Okay, if many regular expressions, okay, must be evaluated to a router to route a request, the latency introduced by Kong gateway can suffer and its CPU usage can increase. It is saying if expression is bigger and it has to evaluate so many logics to determine which to route the request, right? It might be a problem. It will create latency. There will be a performance issue, and CPU utilization also will be higher. So in installations with thousands of routes, replacing regular expression routes by simple prefix routes can improve throughput and latency of Kong gateway. So basically, it is trying to say that avoid regular
Yes.
expressions when you have more number of routes. You have more things to evaluate. Okay, in that case, it is saying use simple prefix. So when you have a performance in your API gateway, this will be one of the point to consider, to evaluate that what is the best way to do, whether you should use more regular expressions or you should use simple prefix route. Clear?
Yeah, clear.
Then starting with version 3.0, Kong gateway uses the regular expression engine shipped with the Rust programming language. Okay, if the router is operating in expressions or traditional compatible mode. Okay, so the way of implementation in the product Kong API gateway itself was changed. That it says, and prior to version of this to evaluate the regular expressions, while the two engines are largely compatible, subtle differences exist between the two. Refer to the documentation. So this is fine. This you can ignore. You don't need to go in detail in this. It is internally in which version what technology was used, how they differ. So that it talks about. It might be required if you have a, let's say, old legacy product which was using 3.0 previous versions, and now you are migrating to the latest one. Now, if there is a difference in performance, difference in the issues, then you might need to go through that in detail. Then dynamically rewrite request URLs, okay, with routes. So let's see how we can rewrite the request URLs. Route can be configured dynamically to rewrite the requested URL to a different URL for the upstream. So it's trying to say, let's say you got one URL call. Now inside your API gateway, you can map or you can apply certain logic, and you can change that pattern to a new pattern as per the instruction given, and then you make the service. For example, your legacy upstream endpoint may have a base URI like API/old. So let's say till today you had one API called API old. This was mapped to a particular service. Okay, but now when you want to increase your business or certain thing, okay, you have your brand name is changed. Let's say company name is changed or something. So you want to expose the URL with a different name, but you don't want to change all the code now with that name. So you want publicly accessible API endpoint to change to the new URL. So let's say your company name change, and here you want to mention your new company name. Okay, so how you will do it? So to route the services upstream endpoint to the new URL, you could set up a service with the path this old, and then route the path to the new API URL. So basically from external client, they will call the newly given path. Now inside your API gateway, you can now map this new to the old, and then old will go to the previous service as it was. Kong gateway can also handle more complex URL rewriting. So here I said about a very simple one, but they are stressing the point that it can do a lot complex URL rewriting cases by using regular expression captures groups in the route path and request advanced detail. So they're saying there are a lot more complex things, transformations can be done or rewriting. For example, this can be when you must replace API slash function slash old to new API function. See, here they are completely changing the path.
Yeah.
Old was at the end. Instead of that, new came in the first.
Yeah.
And then API was first here. Here it came to middle. And then function was in the middle. It came at the end. So it is completely changed URL.
Yeah.
So with this, like we can, there will be option for header injection as well, right?
In header, basically in header, whatever you send, that is your new pattern, new information you are sending. But that is not enough. Inside the transformation layer, it will read all those informations, and then whatever instruction you have given, that okay, if it is new, make it old. If it is function 1, make it function 2. If it is in the second position, make it to the third position. So like that, all those rules you can set.
Okay. So, see, it is altogether a new, totally different URI also we can add, right? It is not
Yeah,
just
altogether it is a different URL which you are basically exposing.
okay.
So you can directly map also, like if completely, if it matches everything like this, then do completely like this. But you cannot do it because certain part might be dynamic. So let's say function name might be dynamic. Okay, many times the parameters which you pass, right? The query string, that also might be dynamic. So that is why you have to write those transformation logic to avoid changes in your code. Because the backend service, there would be a very big number of code which you might need. Instead of making those changes in the code, what you can do is handle it, do this basic transformation here, and changing the code. What will happen is, let's say the changes which you are making, that is only for the new client or the new implementation, but you have, let's say, another 500 customers for whom you don't need to change. When I say customer, it is not like in a bank customer, but they themselves are a different organization altogether. Like for example, let's say now UDDI, for the Aadhaar card and all, right? We are getting all those information. Okay, there are many companies like mobile and all, they have integrated with it. Many companies for security verifications and all, they are integrating with that. Okay, now they are exposing the APIs and they are using those APIs. Now later on, let's say there is a new project altogether. For example, nowadays when we are in the road, when we pay toll tax and all, right, they are saying that your car, vehicles and everything will be mapped with your Aadhaar, or you will have a unique number. So just by identifying your number, which will be linked with your bank account, you will not be requiring your RFID tag. Okay, so new implementation will be there. So that time they want to change the pattern, they want to change certain thing. Okay, all, but they don't want to touch the existing customers. So in that case, these kind of transformations will happen only in the API gateway to avoid huge amount of impact. All right, so next is, they say Kong API gateway later sees the new router. The new router can use regex expression capture group to describe route using the domain specific language called expressions. Okay, so expressions can describe routes or paths to pattern using regular expressions. For more informations, you can visit here and learn more. So 3.0.x onwards, you have these expressions available, and you have advanced versions for them, how you can write to do all your transformations. Then plugins for routes. Okay, you can these plugins interface for route allows you to further routing capabilities for Kong API gateway. So for when you are writing the routing logics, so these all different plugins are available. This is for LDAP authentication related. This is for TLS related. This is for the header related, and here you have route transformer advanced. So you have different plugins to basically write different route paths or do the transformations. Then route configuration, before you can start making request against a service, you must add a route to it. Yes, and you can add routes to service Kong gateway using the following methods. So these are the two ways. One is through the API UI, another is admin API. All right. So I think this two, let it be till here. This is a different, is it? Configuration routes with expressions. Yeah, we'll do this in our next class.
Sure, Manoranjan. Yeah. Manoranjan, actually, we were getting busy with our work, so only we are not able to attend the class in a frequent mode. But to be frank, we want to get the classes like in a regular way. I mean, we will try maximum like at least 1 day gap. We will try to.
Yeah, let's try to do it in alternate days.
Yeah.
Right. So today, tomorrow we go through it, and then let's plan day after tomorrow like that.
Yeah, I mean Saturday, Sunday leave it because
Yeah, sure. So
you know, right?
Saturday,
I
Sunday.
mean, we have so many. Yeah, we will be having other personal
Yeah.
commitments
So at least we can target 3 classes. One,
in a
2,
week.
3 in a week.
Yeah,
Yes, 3 classes we can plan.
yeah, sure. So probably by Monday you can schedule one time. We will try to make it by that time. Okay.
Yeah, sure. So
Because normally
let's
our
target on Monday in that case. Yeah.
sure, sure.
Mm.
Like 4 o'clock.
Monday, probably 12 p.m. or maybe same 4 p.m. So let's catch up
Sure,
on
sure,
Monday morning or Sunday evening, and then we will fix the timing.
sure, sure. No
But let's
problem.
have these 2 slot open so that it is flexible for both of us.
Yeah, sure. Archana, okay for you also, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Yeah. One more point, Manoranjan, actually regarding the fees. Actually, Archana told that she has already paid